My guest today is Mr. Steve Speziale, who is, for people who listen to radio in Australia will particularly know Steve. He's the head of radio news for Southern Cross Austereo. Welcome, Steve, with the squeaky chair.
I will keep rather quiet and still, just what my chair does. Thanks, Trevor. How you doing?
Yeah, very good, thanks. Very good. You're going to put me to shame with your golden tonsils today, so be that as it may, let's rock into this. Why I want to have a chat with you today, Steve, is you've got an exciting new product, you and your business partner, Andy Grace. Now, this is let me get it right, it's a digital content production and delivery tool. It's an app on the iPhone and Android devices, is that correct?
Yeah, it's an app for iPhone for audio and video, and we are playing just audio on Android devices for the time being. Look, it's an app in terms of what you see, but in the background there's quite a complex content management system and database management system as well. But it's a really interesting innovation, and both Andy and I, having long media careers and having a view of where we thought things were going, we thought we'd have a bit of a play in the app space.
And I want to dig a little bit deeper, so we'll talk a little bit about the app, but really the backdrop here is a couple of things. One is you're in the media, and you've seen how PR firms and other individuals and companies come to you with their news, so there's that side of things, but also how we're becoming more of a DIY economy or business marketplace when it comes to creating content. And yes. So, you know, we can do podcasts, we can do video, etc., etc. But I want to talk a little bit about, and it's called BureauXP, in case we haven't already said that, BureauXP.
Time for that later.
And how does it work? And as we go through, I want to work out and get you to explain how you think this is changing the ball game, because I think the fact that you can now record audio and it'll shortly be video and go straight into a newsroom, and particularly with newsrooms today, whether it's broadcast or print, etc., that obviously they're a little bit more on demand than they used to be. So the demand for content is there, but only if it's at a professional level. So let's go through. Take us through what it is, what's the tool, and how is it going to change the way that PR people and comms people and marketing people and organisations and companies can now not only communicate with the media, but they can also use this to record content to go directly to analysts and their own databases, etc. Let's get going.
You touched on a lot of things that I think are important there, Trevor, and one of them is the mantra that content is king has been floating around for a number of years now, and that is the case. The other thing that's obvious to both my partner Andy and I is this idea of there's a liberalisation or a democratisation of media going on. In a sense, anyone can podcast fine, but in a world where there's greater demand for content every day, traditional and even new media begins to fragment to chase more targeted audiences. The machine keeps chewing up content. There's a constant demand for more of it, more targeted, more unique, more high-value content as well. It never stops. So the other thing that's apparent is that in the very big shift in the traditional media space, and that often flows through to the media that replaces the traditional media over time, is there's always going to be pressure on balance sheets to do things more cost efficiently and efficiently, from the operational side back into the cost of creating a piece of content, getting it out to the end user. So with those sorts of ideas in mind, a couple of years ago, Andy and I sat down and looked at how we could actually play in the iPhone space in particular because of the quality of the hardware, and it afforded a high standard of fidelity of audio and video. And it's long been a default piece of hardware in the creative industries. And so building on that idea, we wanted to play in the professional space. Everybody was rushing into the social space. You can be social this, social that. And then we watched a lot of them actually have to build their business models back into a social, unmetered environment. That's not where we wanted to play. We actually wanted to see if we could wade into that space where there's a traditional relationship at work, the creators of content the publicists, PR, media advisors, event promoters who work around the people who have individual thoughts, unique actions, and their own IP, and how it flows through intellectual property. I'm speaking in acronyms here, but how it flows through to the media channels, old and new. And so what we wanted to do was to be able to give people an app that was really simple to use and that had quite a powerful offering in as much as once set up with your target lists and that's through an embedded email system, through links into your social media, Twitter, LinkedIn and Facebook, and then with FTP transfers into production platforms, that once that's set up, you can actually really do some great fast market, good quality recordings, and really work that traditional media relations, PR relationship in a different way that had value for the news people as much as it had value for the people who were trying to promote themselves, to build a profile, through that content delivery.
So for those who are listening in audio, you won't be able to see this obviously, but on the video, I'm just going to put it up to the screen, and we're recording it now, and hopefully that looks like it shows what it is, but we are actually recording this at the moment. Steve, it's a couple of interesting things there, because one is that let's look at the audio side of things, because I think audio is where things are getting really exciting. I mean, video's super exciting as well, but there's a bit of a renaissance in podcasting, etc. But out of all the mediums, probably podcasting probably requires a little bit more technical expertise, particularly if you're going through iTunes, etc. But something like this allows people to play with audio, but not worry about iTunes or having a full-on podcast, does it?
Well, it actually allows that, because with the app and system, you actually have your own iTunes channel and your own RSS feed. So you build followers through that medium as well as pushing directly to their email bins as well. So again, we're trying to cover quite a few bases here, and through Andy's ability to code in-house, and that's Andy's great strength. He's a guy with 20 plus years of media experience here and abroad, but he happens to be a computer engineer and a code writer, obviously. So he's able to actually build at the very basic level of the app and add and grow it. And I think the thing that you point out about the renaissance of the spoken word, obviously I've been in radio as an employee for over 3 decades, and I've always believed in the power of the spoken word in the absence of images to create very powerful images if done well. And I think the thing about it is, in this age of consuming a whole lot of content visually, the return to the idea of the no-look media, the eyeless idea of an audio companion, I think is really powerful today as well. And also, a lot of people are more comfortable communicating verbally than hanging it out there to be seen, and in the social space being possibly harshly critiqued as well.
So let's. I think the best way to illustrate this is to go through some examples. So, okay, let's look at a public company, for example, and that they need to get something out to analysts. Now, obviously, any information you put out when you're a public company needs to go through the ASX, so that side also has to be handled. But you say there's a report not a report, but the CEO or the head financial guy or something wants to talk to a lot of analysts. So rather than do it as a webcast or to get people in the one room, which is probably the hardest thing to be able to do, they can be interviewed or do a straight talk or a presentation, and because they can upload their list of the analysts that they're going out to and upload it to everyone.
That's right. You've got your secured place on the system, so your own dashboard. And in the dashboard, you actually are able to go in and build a number of lists depending on your subscription level. And so once you've constructed your distribution targets, you then have the ability, given it's a mobile system, to go into a chosen space. And again, realism in content is for me a very important factor. If you can take it out of a sterile environment, the CEO you're talking about could, for example, with their corporate advisor, or it's actually easy enough to use on your own, you would simply just perhaps go into the workshop area, go onto a factory floor, go into one of your own environments, and again, be in a position to do something a little more authentic and realistic. That's what this can do. So you would create your presentation. You may well have a conversation with another senior executive and talk through some issues that you think are germane to what the business is about. Having gone through your regulatory compliance issues with the ASX, you would then actually just go record. You've done your recording. You would simply go into the upload mode. You would see a series of target lists that you've already created, and you just simply pick the list and upload, and away it goes. Once gone, it's an automated straight-through process, and the delivery of it is fast, accurate, and again, given the way we've built the app, it harnesses really high audio quality and a variety of video qualities in the video generation. There are 5 different settings which can all be used to your own purposes as well. The delivery time on the audio app, I think, is significant, particularly if you're in the news space. Being a PR advisor or a media advisor, if we just talk in rounded numbers anyway, if you're recording, say, a 5-minute stand-up, doorstop, whatever, by your employer, 5 minutes will effectively reach the newsroom or the designated target in half real time. So even if you had
real time, you've just created a whole new word, my friend. Real time.
I am part of the Star Trek generation, Trev. So 5 minutes of audio in the native AAC format, the MPEG-4 format would be. If it's newsrooms you're sending to, they would get first touch of it via the negative spam email that we put together in half the time that it took to record it. So if you happen to have an issue you need to make a statement about, if you're able to do it at, say, half past the hour, it will be in the newsrooms. If it's a 5-minute media stand-up or a statement, it'll be there within 2.5 minutes of the actual send.
So we're talking. So this comes into the realm. So there was the internal use of it. So again, talking to analysts, the CEO does an annual spiel, whether it's at an annual meeting or whatever, and that can go out to all employees. Entrepreneurs can do it to get out to their lists. Publishers can do it to get out of their lists. All of those things. But let's focus on the news for a minute. So real-time news from an internal comms or a PR perspective. So you can do the doorstop. There's something, maybe there's been a statement needs to be made, and rather than, I don't know what they would have done in the past. I mean, probably, contacted a journalist and gone directly into the journalist. They can now go to everyone in their media list, and you've got media lists as well, or they've got their own. So they do the recording and bang, out it goes, so that the CEO's statement or the company's official word hits the newsrooms in real time, and the guy, particularly in radio, they can take that and put it straight to it.
Look, they can. A couple of points there. BureauXP Media has its national media list in the Australian experience, and so I've curated a list that I think has high value in the media space. And the other point to make is that it's a case of record once and hit multiple targets in a very small window, which is important as well. So I think what we wanted to do was to add something to the media relations space. So there's the whole stakeholder communications field. Yes, could be clients, could be customers, could be workers in a global workforce, could be a whole lot of types of stakeholders. My history, I guess, is in the news space, Trevor, and so I was looking for solutions that met some of the issues I saw, not just over the horizon in the distance, but were coming charging over the horizon at us in the near term. So that's what it's about. It's about getting a news event into the editor's inbox as fast as possible, in a format that was really attractive. It kind of put the story into a better shape and got it there quickly.
So if we looked at someone was running an event, for example, and there's genuine news value, there's going to be someone at the event or something being announced, but the newsroom being on a skeleton staff couldn't send anyone, but they're very keen in the story, so you could set it up that we'll interview such and such during the event and whip it over to you, and they know it's coming. So it's kind of, it's a bit of citizen journalism, but it's still being edited and fine-tuned at the radio end if it's radio.
Again, a couple of points wrapped up in both observation and question there. I think it's really important to maintain the integrity of the relationship. I'm a journalist, and broadcaster, so I want to be able to hear the complete interview intact in context. I want to hear the rigour around the questioning, and I want to be able to choose my own grabs, so to speak. And I also might have other uses for them, and that should be left in my domain. What I would probably acknowledge is that what you've been able to do is to get me something authentic from the event and put it in front of me for consideration in really, really quick time. I think that's an important part of it. Again, for me, it was actually about enhancing the integrity of the relationship between, the newsmaker, whether it be an individual or an event, and the people who are given the role of, in a sense, editing on behalf of the consumers. And we laid into that the ability to broaden that target base by putting social media straight in, so you can go straight to that social audience as well. But in the newsroom space, the other point that you make that I just wanted to touch on was that in the Australian context, the majority of audio consumers are there by virtue of traditional radio, growing through other means. But in traditional radio, the stations that actually target or attract the most listeners have conversely more modest news resources than the stations that would have larger news teams. But we're talking traditional AMers here. When you look at the numbers, you've got FM newsrooms in particular that probably don't have super staffing after midday Monday to Friday and don't go on the road on weekends, except in the most dire of news stories. So there are lots of, I think, industry insights that we've tried to build into this system without having to necessarily go, it'll do this, this and this. Sunday is a great study. Sunday in public relations, media relations land is all geared towards the evening TV news bulletin, where you might get a grab on air in a structured 90-second story. You might get a second bite. Monday morning radio newsrooms are walking into a new week, very little content to start their week. If they actually have a place to go, and that would be your RSS feed as Publicist X, who's been sending out this, the newsrooms would actually have an email receipt in their system, and they could actually see that, okay, 4 o'clock on a Sunday afternoon, here's the 4 minutes of audio from that event. Journalists in that environment are looking for the secondary or those tertiary angles that would not have been used front and centre at the start of the 6 o'clock news on Sunday night, but actually there are follow-up angles, some of which might be demographically more valuable to them than what was actually used at the start of the bulletin on a Sunday night. So there is this idea that you can get further life and value from your media event than you might think at the moment.
Yep, and it has another point there too, is that as a radio newsman, you're always looking for grabs and things to supplement the story, to give it more legs and to make it real and more interesting.
Don't forget ambient sound. News is not just the spoken word, but the sound of an event. The great experiences I've had, I worked in Melbourne for many years and just jumping out of the newsroom downstairs to Bourke Street many years ago as a massive union rally trooped up towards Parliament House. Just held the microphone there, and that seething sound of the Workers United will never be beat.
Sound
in amongst a few other epithets that were flown around. It was great atmosphere, and so I think when people who are involved in the media relations and PR and event process sit down and look at the sound your event makes, not just the spoken word, but the atmosphere, that ambient sound. There is some value there as well.
Yep. Well, all good, Steve. I think that, again, it's getting the real-time nature, the mobile factor that you can be on the spot and do it. This real-time and mobile it really fits into the zeitgeist, doesn't it, of where we're all going in terms of content creation. But I think the added flavour there for the PR industry is the fact that you can get it into newsrooms or your own, membership or your own lists or whatever. So you can go direct to audiences, which is great for PR, but the ability to go to a radio network is good. And I know we've probably focused a bit more on the audio, and you're working on the video, and that's out on the iPhone and soon to be on Android. So video is just going to change the ball game again.
Look, it all does, and I think the key here for me is that content's king, but there's a royal court around the king.
A royal court. Okay.
There are advisors. We've had some really sus kings over the years in various countries.
Oh, we have.
We have monarchs, but the idea though is that you've got to be able to harvest your content. You've got to be able to create it and move it in a meaningful, high value way. So tools like this are actually changing what it's all about. If you have individual thought, you're a thought leader, or you can actually now grab what you're doing and submit it to media, to new media, to old media, to your own stakeholder group. That's your email list. It's your social media following. And the other thing that I think has become, quite valuable is that the move towards social media has been, very, very swift and prominent. I think the really successful campaigns that are happening out there at the moment are realising that there are still vast numbers of people consuming traditional media daily, and pushing from traditional into your new media environment, using them both in a synced way is really where the big wins are too.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is available now. How do people have a look at it, get it?
Well,
how do you get the app? Is it in the App Store?
Yeah. Look, it is. We're a professional channel, so we're not out there to be all over the place. We think that we want to be able to make sure that what we do stands out from just ubiquitous file sharing places as well. So BureauXP.com.au in Australia. And the app for the iOS environment is in the App Store at the moment. The audio version is up now, and we'll be soon uploading the updated version, which will have the video capacity, and whether it's visible depends on the subscription level you take. So investigate the website and have a look around. There's actually a sample membership as well, subscription we put in place, which will allow people a couple of audio uploads in a month and maybe a play with one of the video uploads as well, just to see how it works for them too.
Sounds good, my friend. Okay, well, thank you very much for your time, and good luck with it all.
Trevor, pleasure always. Look forward to seeing the blog.
Thank you.